Spotlight, lectures and performances on and around Albany State University.
Isn't it a great day to be alive and blessed at Albany State University? It's been a great day. And lunch was wonderful, enjoyable, and thank you for those committee members that took the time in preparing that for us today. But it is my honor at this time to present to you our next speaker for this afternoon, Mrs. Sylvia Hooker. I was very fortunate to be a member of the Glissy team back in the fall and was honored to hear her speak. And if you've not heard her speak, you are in for a treat today. But Mrs. Sylvia Christine Hooker is a veteran of 26 years in the field of education. She obtained her education specialist degree from Central Connecticut State University. She is the daughter of the late William and Doris Hooker. Her family has always been trailblazers in the field of leadership, fine arts, and servanthood. Within 7 years, Sylvia was elevated to the position of administrator and working as a gifted teacher in the highest performing elementary school to impacting student achievement in the poorest school and community in Hartford, Connecticut. Mrs. Hooker's focus has always been what's best for the children. Community. Sylvia has led an all-male middle school within a school initiative at Lewis Fox Middle School. She championed taking the highest rate of disciplinary infractions in all of Hartford's middle schools to decrease student infractions to single digits in just a 6-month period. After significant work with alternative programs in Georgia, Sylvia was tapped by Georgia's Leadership Institute for School Improvement and worked as a performance consultant. Her work included assisting over 45 school districts with effective school improvement planning. Her work with struggling learners and tough-to-teach children is well noted in the state of Georgia. Mrs. Hooker's Alliance and Alternative Education Program was selected in 2002 by the Georgia Department of Education to host an international delegation from the United Kingdom seeking ways to reach and teach challenging young people. Mrs. Hooker has received numerous awards and recognitions to include honorable mention in her first year of teaching from Teacher Magazine, Teacher of the Year by National Sororities, the Concerned Adult for the Children of Hartford Award, Martin Luther King Service Award, and an appointment to Georgia's Professional Standards Commission. Sylvia is a consummate learner as she has completed the Georgia Superintendent's Professional Development Program and the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education Fellowship Policy Program. She is a national speaker and presenter for colleges, SACS, CASI, NASSP, NMSA, National Youth at Risk, National Alternative Education Association, Learning Forward, and various community and numerous community groups. It is my honor at this time to introduce to you Mrs. Sylvia Christine Hooker.
I always choose that song by Michael Jackson. He's been my favorite over time because I don't want to stop until I get enough, and you shouldn't stop until you get enough or they got enough of you. Everybody hear me? As a leader, don't stop till you get enough or until they've gotten enough of you. The urgency for change, this urgency of change. That's what I want to talk to you about. I've seen this great research that has gone through this morning, a couple of different presentations. The one on bullying, make sure you're not the bully. Leader, do you hear me? Just because you got that badge on you that says you are whatever, make sure you're not the bully. Then when I looked, make sure you're not a cheater. Because when you cheat the kids out of what they should be receiving. You cheat the teachers out of what they should be receiving. And then as I looked And I saw the gentleman talking about budgets, and they talk about the equity, and they talk about the inequality of what happens with schools that have some funds and schools that don't have funds. Well, I'm going to tell you, a leader that had to leave earlier just a few minutes ago, Superintendent of Calhoun County Schools, they got some of the highest test scores, one of the poorest districts. And for you who have students black, white, purple, pink, whatever subgroups you're wrestling with, I encourage you to run down to Calhoun County to see what they're doing. You will not find it just necessarily in digging through your data. Some of your folks actually have to see it. When I think about the urgency of change, I think about a number of things. And I'm taking my information not from a dear friend of mine, Joe Renzulli and Sally Reese, because they taught me in the gifted program. But I'm not taking that information from them. I'm taking what they called me as I got appointed to this turnaround position. They told me, Sylvia, you teach those young people what we taught you, that all children have particular gifts and talents, and you are to lead and make sure and ensure that if your heart is in your work, all kids will succeed. Do you believe that? That's kind of wimpy. I know this is a class, winding it up and wrapping it up. But the bottom line, this work of leadership is hard work. Hard work. And unless you believe that you really can make a change, you won't. Atlantic Star said it best for me, and I'm going to walk you through my little trilogy of music. Atlantic Star said what? If your heart isn't in it, what? Why don't you tell me so? Oh man, I know everybody's not as, why don't you tell me so? If my heart wasn't in it, I'd have gone long ago. I've seen exit doors, 1, 2, 3 exit doors. Take either one if your heart is not in this work. I don't care if you've got the degree. If your heart is not in this work, you need to take an exit right now, because our kids cannot and no longer afford folks that are highly qualified. We need folks that are highly effective. We need leadership that can look at every single child, look at that data for every single child and make it work. I think somebody's going to come on in a little bit and talk about RTI, make it work. Make it work, elementary, middle, and high school. I'm tired of folks telling me, I guess they didn't get it from elementary, they didn't get it from the middle, they didn't get it. Everybody's in this business together. And it's going to take everyone, talking to everyone, to make it work. Maxwell, I'm coming from John Maxwell's laws of teamwork. And he talks about the law of significance. You as a leader, going into your buildings, going into your schools, and going into your communities, and really finding out where people really are coming from. Taking that leadership walk. I know as we were working in troop and having our leadership development program for our troop county schools, and they asked me to help develop that piece, I said, okay, our first field trip will be get on the school bus. Everybody who wants to be a leader, get on the school bus. And I'm going to take you without air conditioning to every single part of the neighborhood, for the most affluent to the poorest in our. Now, do you still want to be the leader? Because you won't be somebody who says, I want to work in this neighborhood. No, you're going to have to be able to work in any neighborhood, because a leader shows best practices. And even though I am the deputy superintendent for school turnaround, it is not about who has turnaround competencies. It is who knows the work. who knows the work. Where did you come from? Knowing that one person can make a difference. I'm sitting here and looking in this room, and I heard the work that professors have done to help you and groom you into your positions. But you can't do it by yourself. One person can make a difference, but it's 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 inside those schools. If you think you can walk in there and just change it all by yourself, and I knew I was like that my very first time when I walked in my first teaching position. I went after 14 years in the corporate sector. They didn't allow you to have a full year of ineffectiveness. Matter of fact, they didn't even let you have 90 days of ineffectiveness. 2 weeks, you sit around and look like you don't know how to do your job. A slip which was called pink. But if we're talking about the sense of urgency, we're talking about who we need. We can no longer have somebody in classrooms for 180 days ruining our kids. And I'm talking about teachers now. I'm talking about us looking at who is in that building. Who are the barriers to student achievement? And taking what you've known and what you've learned and putting it into full effect. I don't know, who are your personal heroes? Everybody was talking about stories. I saw Dr. Murphy showing his heroes. I know those were his heroes. Anybody here have some personal heroes? Anybody have anybody who told them they could make it? Then that's your hero. Those are the folks whose names you will not see in a history book. Those are the folks who have you sitting in this seat where you are right now. Some of the different challenges that you had along your way as you were growing up as a child, those are the ones who said you could make it. Well, I want you to look at the ones who illuminate my way. That's the Hooker family. That picture was taken at 55 Davenport Street, Ledgecrest Project. See that beautiful woman right there? They say I look like her. Doris Yvonne Walker Hooker. I'm sorry to say, Albany State, she only spent 1 year here because she went and married my father and took off to Connecticut. But she did attend Albany State for a year. Loved music. I say we're a series of firsts because in Hartford, Connecticut, she was the first person who was selected by Eunice Johnson of Ebony Magazine Fashion Fair. She was the first fashion fair representative for the state of Connecticut. Yeah. William James Hooker on the other end, my father, preacher, trailblazer, first African-American pastor in Bristol, Connecticut, someplace where it was so rural. They started this church down in a cellar. And I never saw a rabbit, really a live one in my life, but it was in the country. And my father, because what he was really about was developing leaders, at his 86th birthday, every person that he helped groom to become a pastor went to visit him at his bedside before he passed away. That gentleman back there with the Wyatt Earp tie, you see him? Wyatt Earp, that's what we called it at that particular time, my day and age. That's my brother Billy. I think he's one of the most brilliant and the most gifted musicians that I've ever witnessed in my entire life. My brother Billy, very, very bright, you all. He could go into a classroom, give him the book, let him read it. He'd be back on Friday, give him the test. He'll take it and he'll pass it. He didn't need someone standing in front of his face to show him or tell him what to do, because that's just the way we taught a long time ago, didn't we? Read the chapter, here's the unit test, take it, pass it. He could do that. My brother Billy, so brilliant. And I said a series of firsts. He was the first African American at New Britain High School to be selected as a student council president. He was voted best dressed. Can you believe that? And the thing was, he was going to be asked to be the first African American drum major that they had at New Britain High School. My mother and father were elated. Ooh, gosh, Billy, can you do it? Yeah. My brother said, I don't want to do that. See, my brother had his own band. His band was called the Flames. He named it after James Brown's famous Flames. And they went around the state of Connecticut, around the shoreline. He became noted all over Connecticut until one day they said, well, you know, you want to audition down at this particular place? He said, well, yeah, our band can audition. And so they auditioned, and then they asked him twice a month to go down to the Apollo Theater and back up Dionne Warwick and the Young Rascals. And that's what he did in his senior year. So no, he didn't want to be a drum major. I'll march in the Macy's Day Parade. My brother Billy went on to be working in stocks and those type of things. However, guess what? He'll be retiring this year as a middle school music history teacher at Walt Whitman Middle School in New York. And I don't know if anybody's seen the movie. I think it wasn't this Christmas. It was the one with Morris Chestnut being the Santa Claus and Gabrielle Union being the mother of all these different kids. Well, the one that was a little feisty young man who was 11 years old, that young boy was in my brother's class, and he brought him to the audition for that movie, and that young man got in that movie. That's my brother Billy. Now you see that one with that bow tie that's smiling at all of y'all, happy? He's the one in which the behavioral pyramid of RTI was made for. That's my brother Craig. My brother Craig loved school. He loved all teachers, loved every principal, because he was in that office quite a bit. He loved police. Police liked him. He liked a whole lot of people during the course of the school day that he really shouldn't have been seeing because he should have been in school. But he'd be at the store. He'd be with his friends, hang out. Craig loved school, loved people. 3rd grade, Craig knew everybody from the 1st grade to the 6th grade in his school. All the teachers, because he would hang out in their classroom. Craig, got to go back to yours. Craig's like a comedian, wonderful young man. Till one day, my mother was called to the school, and Craig was in the 3rd grade. Miss Hooker, we need to talk. My mother, what's going on? We need to have a conference. Craig doesn't look like he's going to make it out of his 3rd grade. Okay. My mother's coming to the conference. Craig's sitting there. Teacher's sitting there. Okay. What's going on? Craig is a social butterfly. We really like Craig, but we'd like Craig to get focused. My mother looked at Craig and said, Craig, you know this means you're going to stay back, right? If you don't straighten up. And Craig's looking at my mother and at the teacher. This 3rd grader. He says, well, I know Nathan Vincent is in the 2nd grade. And 3 other of his friends that were in the 2nd grade. He said, then if I stay in the 3rd grade, then they'll be in the 3rd grade next year, right? They'll be in class with me, right? My mother said the young man didn't get it. Craig was perfectly willing to grow old in elementary school. Craig, love my brother Craig. He loved people. and Craig eventually became a minister. My sister Gail, I want you to look at those eyes. She said, her eyes are on you. I can remember when she looked, and the young girl is brilliant, but she's a person who studies. She would look at teachers and say, I'm not going to do that. I remember in middle school, and she said, I want to take home ec. And that's what something all girls had to take at one particular, I don't want to take home ec. Well, you got to take it. Okay. Sister didn't like the teacher, didn't like the class, marginal at best, but she was all A's. My sister was all A's in every other area. Came down for a report card. Sister said, no, I passed this class. I'm not going to get an F because I got all A's in the other. The teacher said, well, you're going to have to bring this report card home. She said, I'm not bringing that report card home. I'm sitting in this chair. You're going to have to call my mother, call everybody down to this school. I'm not moving. And my sister's eyes, you see how intent they are? That's how she was when she was a baby. Everybody was scared of her. Called my mother down to the school and said, wait a minute. Gail's not flunking anything. Well, she has a bad attitude. Now, do you see where I'm coming from, folks? We've got folks flunking kids because they got a bad attitude. Know how to do the work. Bad attitude. Well, just to let you know, my sister Gail went on to Syracuse University. Full scholarship, Syracuse University, one of the big 8, Syracuse University. Went there. While there, fell in love. You all know about love. You know about love? Her senior year, became pregnant. My nephew Brandon, senior year, January 29th, Oprah Winfrey's birthday, born on it. Bottom line, when she graduated, went across that stage that May with a 3.87 average. You're not going to tell me about people who don't illuminate my way. We've got all kinds of folks that are helping us in this to become the leaders that we are. They've helped me become the leader that I am. And Carnegie has stated this, it makes a big step in your development when you can realize other people can help you do a better job together than you can do by yourself. You can get your degree by yourself, but you cannot go into those schools by yourself and do that work by yourself. It's going to take something, some efforts, some folks holding your arms up when times get tough to help you do the work. The Four Tops. All music goes in the background with this, folks, but I don't know why it's not working today. The Four Tops said it best. You got to see the big picture. You got to believe in somebody other than yourself to help you get this work done. And my father gave me the biggest and the best and the wisest advice. Don't think the song can't be sung if you're not there to sing it. Why did he say that? Because one day, I was playing piano because I'm a gospel musician. And I've been playing for over 42 years. All right. Then you understand what I'm about to tell you. Have choir rehearsal and folks straining and struggling to make the song work. On Sunday, we're all up there with our little robes on, and the person who sings the lead's going to sit out in the congregation and watch us struggle. Everybody ought to know something about this in some of these churches now. We got divas and divettes. Well, I was looking, and my father asked for that particular song. And I'm kind of looking out there getting ready, because I was 14 years old when I started playing. So you don't kind of know which way to go. And he said, don't you dare ask that person to sing the song. You sing it. In leadership, don't think school won't run just because you're not standing up there. the kids are still coming. Don't think that you're all that in a bag of chips, as kids would say. I want us to understand, yes, it is a beautiful thing to have our leadership certificates and those type of things, but we're going to have to understand that this work is work that you cannot do by yourself. And I've seen too many people trying to do it by themselves and trying to have their egos lead the school, bless you, instead of the student achievement and the data and what you can do for kids to drive the school. The law of the big picture is it's not about you. And if we're going to reach our full potential, you're going to have to step back and let other folks shine. I did hear from David Hill, and I was right on it because I've always said it too. If you are put into a position, however, to lead a school, lead a central office position, lead a district, you have to step out front first. No, you cannot lead from behind when you first get appointed, because somebody has to know who's the leader. When you do get your folks rallied together and working in line and lined up, that's when you can start the delegation and delegate well. That's when you know who is in those positions. You cannot assume when you walk in that everybody knows what they're supposed to do. And why do I say that? Because right now I'm going into schools now and monitoring schools that have been in needs improvement 4, 5, 6, 7. And if you've been in needs improvement all that long time, then somebody doesn't know some of these things that they're supposed to do. So therefore, I'm not assuming that just because you have the certificate that you know the work. And you're going to have to help them. The gentleman was talking, who said professional development? The man who just left. He was talking about professional development. You're going to have to develop the people within those buildings to work with you and work and be on track with you so that our kids can get the most out of their performance. It's not about you. The Temptations talked about it best. Ball of confusion. Know your niche. I've seen some folks raise their hand for high school. Raise it again. High school, middle school, elementary. Okay, central office. Okay, somebody going, I'm central office. Sometimes I used to struggle with raising my hand there too. When I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about it. Know your niche. We've had too many people having our kids go down because they weren't in the right place. What do I mean? When I sit here and I think about it, I remembered my very first teaching assignment. Long-term sub, Sand Everywhere School, Hartford, Connecticut, in the heart of the hood. Folks coming in, cursing out folks, beating up folks, kids dying. Yes, kids dying, because I had the four major gangs. The Bloods, the Crips, the folks. Had them all. Had those folks, Latin Kings. Had them all surrounding the school. And it wasn't because I wanted a job so bad. It was because it was one of my learning experiences that the college told me, you will go to the hood as well as going to the most affluent part of town to see and work the process. First grade. Little people. Little people. Went to that first grade. And the teacher, who was on a maternity leave, looked at me and said, these children are very limited. And she's going to tell me they're very limited going in. And I did my first long-term sub-teaching experience, very limited. Their parents cause havoc. You need to know and understand. Went in January, mid-year. If any of you get an appointment and you get started in mid-year, I'm going to let you know it's going to be difficult. Because somebody's not going to like you. Every little kid, they might not even like their teacher formally, but they sure didn't like me coming in the middle of the year. Little kindergartners, first grader. Coming in, little girl cursed me out. First grade. Only person ever in my life ever got cursed out, but I got cursed out by a first grader. Never got cursed out by a parent. Middle school kid, high school, never. First grader. I looked at that little girl, and the lady said that they were limited. Their vocabulary is limited. That girl had every curse word in the right spot. I said, so if she can articulate this correctly, we can get her on the right page with English language arts. But it was that first grade when they were hanging on to my leg from the time I walked in to the time I got ready to go home. I said, no, that's not my niche. No. In high school, I had to go over to that area. And the first time one of those kids looked at me with one of these gangster-lean kind of looks, and I looked at him as if to say, both of us going to go to jail today. That's the look I gave him anyway. Somebody going. Both of us might have to go. I said, no, that's not my niche. But the next time, when I went in to the middle school, and I saw this little girl jump off the bus. And the little girl, she looked really kind of like homely. Looked like a little girl that was kind of frightened. Middle school is a tough little time. And she had her little book bag on her back. And she jumped off the bus. Didn't look left or right. Just went straight into the girls' bathroom. She went into that girl's bathroom and she came out. I thought I was looking at Superwoman. Her collar was up. Her hairstyle was different. Her skirt was rolled up. She was ready for middle school. Nobody was going to bully her. Nobody was going to look at her funny because the bottom line is she identified. She knew her niche then. And when I looked at her and I remembered the time I went to school with that long little dress that I had on at one particular time as a preacher's kid, sitting there with this little wide belt that I had, I rolled that thing up in the girls' bathroom. I pulled my hair up. I pulled my collar up. I said, this is my niche. I got middle school. I knew how to identify with those young people when I was struggling. Know your niche. And don't take a job just because it's your first job. Don't take that job just because you've been sending out your resumes to each and everybody. That's wrong. You have to have a deliberate passion for where you're going. Know the kids that you're going to teach. I'm not just talking about knowing the data. I'm talking about know the kid that you're going to teach or lead. And you have to either know the students or do you want to know them? That's what concerns me with leadership now. I'm finding more and more, and I'm going to say it from elementary, middle, and high school, it's everybody's responsibility. Get down into that elementary and middle school to see what's going to be coming up to you up the pipeline and dialogue with the middle school to make sure that once the kids walk into your building, no, it's not the middle school didn't do this. We got to work this together because guess what? The kid is not going back to middle school once they got into your building. If you're a high school leader, know where they come from. Know where they come from. Right now I'm working with a constituency in which many of the kids are kids that are of military parents. Transition in and out, in and out. Tough time assimilating sometimes. You're going to have to understand that if you're going to be in that type of leadership position with and a place in which you have children who are transient. the wrong person in the wrong place, you're moonwalking. You don't need to be frustrated or confused. You've got to hit those last 2 marks. You've got to hit them to be a successful leader. The law of Mount Everest. The law of Mount Everest. That's the reason why I love my sister. She understood the law of Mount Everest. When she had her daughter, Carrie, I can remember the very first day of school. Carrie's first day of school, my brother Craig, I was there at the bus stop. She told us to be at that bus stop because Carrie's going to get on that bus at 7:15. We got to have the support. She called my mother, my father, myself, my brother Craig. We're all there, standing, lining up at the bus stop. Carrie had her little lunch bag and jumped on that bus. First day of school. I was getting ready to go back to work because I worked at Arthur Anderson Consulting Company at that time. She told me at the end of the day, the bus comes back at 3 o'clock. I want you still here. I took the day off. My brother Craig, mother, everybody lined up at the bus. We thought we were going to take Carrie out for ice cream. She jumped off that bus. My sister said, get in the car. We got in the car. The ice cream parlor was only around the corner. She said, we're going on a field trip. My sister got in that car and she said, Carrie, this is the middle school that you're going to graduate from. You're going to be promoted to. She took that car and continued to drive up the road and said, Carrie, that's the high school that you're going to graduate from. She showed her that on the very first day of school. She had the law of Mount Everest marked. And we were in Connecticut at the time. And then she said, Carrie, we can't make this trip right now, but you're going to graduate from Spelman because you're going to be a Spelman girl. Unfortunately, she didn't say Albany State. But do you understand what you're going to have to do as leaders? You're going to have every kid, once they get off that bus, have an expectation that there's something bigger than the grade they're in, that week of test that they're in. You're going to have to help them decide that they're going to be more than that just a perpetual pre-K to 12 student or P16 student or a kid who just makes an impact on this particular community from where they are. You have to have kids that are going to make an impact on this world. You've got to have them step outside themselves in your leadership role. So what's your dream for your kids? Every teacher should be asking that when they get off the bus. What's your dream? Because the bottom line is, it is no more than a dream when they first walk into that building. Unless you, with some of the STEM academies that are happening in elementary school, you, as leaders, different kind of groups, charter groups, this, that, and other, working together. It's no more than a dream if you don't help make it a reality. Create a dream team. I had to go for the past 2 weeks. I would have had slides for each and every one of you, but I will make sure that you get these slides. But for 2 weeks straight, I've been on the road going to different high schools, and it's high schools that received the SIG School Improvement Grant money, to sit there and talk about what is their leadership team doing to help the leader make the big impact on student achievement that should be happening. And some folks told me, well, you know, we got this support team over here and this group here. I said, what about the kids that are at AP? Why isn't this person around this table? Even the lowest achieving students. It's not a SIG grant for lowest achieving students. It was for the school And the school had all kinds of students in there. They should have all been around that table talking about what can we do to add rigor to our classes to make sure and ensure our young people get what they need. Develop a dream team. Work with a dream team. Yes, there are going to be challenges that are controversial. Dr. Murphy already told you about that piece. But what are you going to do when there's a controversial challenge that meets you as a leader of a department, a leader of a school, leader of a district? What are you going to do? You're going to stand united. I don't think we tell our stories enough about what good is happening. So other people tell our stories for us. And they tell it and twist it the way they want to tell it and twist it. Let's make sure that you have the law of Mount Everest, the highest of expectations for everybody in your community to go out and tell this story. You got to be united. If anything that I know, that education is disconnected from real world, because when they tell me about students not being engaged, because sometimes the stuff we're teaching in school is not relevant. Well, how can that be? Why would a kid want to come to school or participate if you cannot give some relevancy to the world in which they do live? This young man, thank the Lord for him. I don't know anything about this technology stuff. But guess what? Your kids do. Why can't they help? And looking at some of the different added pieces to curriculum that have to happen in a technology age. They are the IY generation. We are not it. And guess what? Technology is changing as we sit. We've got to stay united and work with them through this whole process. The law of the chain. When you get ready to work inside your buildings, make sure you have a united team, because some teams aren't for everybody. The young man asked me what was my comment and quote that I've always stated. I've got two at this particular time now. One, as a leader, you're going to have to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. We've got too many comfortable people with graduation rates, cohort rates from 40-something, and we're just happy. That's not my class. And my other piece is the law of the chain means we're in this thing together. And the bottom line is I'm tired of the word buy-in. I told folks you bought in when you cashed your first check. And if you can't work this work in our building for our kids and do what we need to do to make kids then give the check back. And you're going to have to be bold enough and brave enough to tell somebody you're not going to sit around and dicker and play around with, do you want to learn or do you want to help a kid? The bottom line is you're going to if you're going to be in this building. You're going to if you're going to be about our team. The law of the chain. I'm going to find out if you're with the law of the chain. All of you look pretty comfortable sitting in your chair right now. But I'm going to give you less than a minute to get up from that chair and connect as a chain in this room. And let me see. Now see, I didn't even call 1, 2, 3 yet. But some folks are raring and running up and down the aisle. Say, wait a minute, I don't know if I can make it. I'm going to count to 3. You'll have less than a minute to connect as a human chain. I didn't count to 3 yet. But you said, I can't get out of my chair. 1, 2, 3. Everybody in the room. You gotta connect. You gotta connect. You've got 20 seconds left. You've got 14 seconds left. Connect, connect. Dr. West, everybody hooked up back there? Dr. Bembry, everybody hooked up back there? Some of you, I don't know if you've ever talked to each other before. But the world of education has to have a chain where we're talking from pre-K to 20. Everybody hear me? Yeah. We're going to have to get up from our chairs and we're going to have to move with some urgency. And guess what? There's going to be a time factor. That cohort from grade 9 to 12, that is true now, folks. Those kids in those junctures from grades 3, 5, and 8, it's true now. They're going to have to know those knowledge and skills to move to that next level for wherever area you represent. Look at each other. I see different colors, different shapes, different sizes, different grade levels. And no one should feel comfortable about where we are right now. That's why you all got up and folks were getting up smiling. It's going to be some hard work and you have to smile through some of this stuff. You know you've seen and heard some crazy stuff. And you have to get on up every day and smile through some of this craziness that's out here. Look around you. You've got folks in large districts, folks in small districts. Look around you. No one should be leaving this room not connecting with somebody in this room that they don't know and haven't worked with. And then you said, yes, they've been a part of this continuum, but do you really know their schools? Do you really know what's happening on inside of those buildings? Yes, we have some pockets of excellence and we have some pockets of areas that need some work. Albany State, look around this room. Because as I walk through these classrooms, I'm going to want you to be walking through these classrooms with me at the State Department for this reason. We're preparing kids for the next level. These turnaround schools that have some of these most challenging students, they're some of the best and the brightest students I've ever connected with because they know how to survive in real life. Some of these kids are surviving without food in your district. I got any amens up in here? Some kids are surviving and making a way, getting on that bus, trying to skirt out the communities in which they live because they cannot succeed. And they know they can't succeed. And they're not just there for a lunch, they're there for you. I want you to see it and understand it and know it. These kids are here for you. So you as a leader, what are you going to do to keep them there? What are you going to do to make sure that they get to that next level? What are you going to do to talk to the person right next to you to make sure you got it going on in your school, you got it going on in your classroom? What can we do to make it better? It's time for us to talk and connect. There's been too much disconnection. And folks, if we're going to tell our story and tell it right, we're going to have to communicate with each other to make it so. Have a seat. Is it too high a price to pay to connect? Is it? Luther Vandross has said it's never too much. Never too much, never too much. The bottom line is the law of the price tag. You can't get paid for what you do. You can't get paid for what you do. When you change a life, I don't know how much price you put on it, but your salary, for a kid to come back to you at the end of a school year that you didn't even think appreciated you or anything you said, can't put a price on that. My father used to say, the higher you go, the more you got to pray. And guess what? The more you got to pray and the more you got to pay. It's an extended price for the higher you go.